As their classmate, I had a front row seat to the rise and fall of Clara and Ethan. The relentless jock and the ice queen brainiac who finally let her guard down for love. It's just a shame their story couldn't survive the reality of graduation. Years later, Ethan moved back to the States. Someone in the old group chat started organizing a class reunion. People were scheming, hoping to get the two of them back together. And me, Clara's secret husband, I just quietly turned off my phone. I had just gotten out of bed when the messages from my high school group chat started rolling in. They were talking about organizing a reunion to welcome Ethan back. A chance for everyone to get together, catch up, and relive the good old days. Ethan popped up in the chat, sending a GIF that said, "I'm flattered." Then someone started a new group chat. Everyone was in it except for Ethan and Clara. The one leading the charge was Ethan's old desk mate, Frank. You all know the story, right? Clara and Ethan, our star-crossed lovers, had to break up because he was moving overseas. As far as I know, they're both still single. Why don't we play matchmaker and help them rekindle that old flame? Damn, the drama. Why are they both still single? Your guess is as good as mine, and I'm not about to ask. Someone like Clara, the ice queen type, once they learn how to love someone, it's for life. It's true. I've never seen her look at anyone with that kind of warmth. Their thing was basically common knowledge across the whole school back then. I totally shipped them. Haha. This whole scheme was so presumptuous. They probably hadn't even bothered to ask either of the people involved. The chat was getting more and more hyped. I've been a lurker for years, basically invisible. So, amidst all the enthusiastic planning, I just quietly turned off my phone. Clara rarely checks the class group chat, and her social media feed has been dead for years. It's all reposts of academic papers or her commentary on some new technology. There's very little sign of a real person, which makes it hard to get any glimpse into her life. Back in school, everyone called her the Ice Queen. Even at that young age, she was already holed up in the temple of academia, completely devoted to her studies. It's kind of funny, actually. In our class of over 40 students, only 2 people's grades were ever consistent, rock solid. Clara and the guy who was dead last. When I finished in the bathroom and opened the door, Clara was standing right outside. Oh, sorry. I took a while. I noticed her eyes were a little red. She probably pulled another all-nighter, staying up until 1 or 2 working on her tenure paper. It's fine. By the way, I have to go to the hospital to look after my dad today. I probably won't be back for a few days. We've been living here for over a year, but this drawer still feels like a stranger. It always gets stuck halfway, and I have to jam my knee under it to get it all the way open. I'm leaving early to catch the bus, so you don't have to wait for me, she said. She stared at me for a second, nodded, and then turned to go inside. Clara and I have a strange amount of shared history. We went to the same high school, and now we even work at the same university. Of course, she was a high-level recruit with a Ph.D., while I just passed the exam after getting my master's and landed a stable admin job. My life is a steady 9 to 5. Not like her, juggling being a mentor and a lecturer, so busy she's always run off her feet. That's why I try my best not to bother her with trivial things. I kind of wanted to ask if she'd seen the reunion announcement, but I didn't want her to know Ethan was back. A first love is a force to be reckoned with. It stakes a claim on your heart with supreme, untouchable priority. Even Clara wasn't immune. I once found a photo of her and Ethan tucked inside one of her books. They were standing side by side, one outgoing, the other reserved. So close that there was no room for anyone else. Before I left, she was standing in the foyer with a cup of coffee, watching me put on my shoes. I have a hard time imagining what Clara is like when she's in love. A normal person would probably hug their husband, talk about what to have for dinner. Clara? She'd probably grab your arm and passionately lecture you on the symbiotic development of humans and nature. The thought almost made me laugh out loud. To be honest, I was also curious to see that warm expression she supposedly had whenever she was with Ethan. I pulled my foot back from the doorway. How about a good morning kiss? She just looked at me, confused. There wasn't a trace of affection in her eyes, only bewilderment at my out-of-character behavior. Okay then. Guess I'm not worthy of pulling this goddess down from her pedestal. Just kidding. I'm heading out. I gave her a little wave. She said, "Be safe." A long time ago, I saw Clara waiting by the school gate for Ethan to finish his cleaning duty so they could walk home together. I heard they were neighbors. Their parents knew each other, too. It was the perfect setup. Clara never wasted a second. She was holding a vocabulary notebook, her profile serious and focused. Then Ethan came tearing out and jumped on her back. He had this incredibly handsome smile. He was our gym class rep, outgoing, energetic, and bright. He was the kind of person born to be the center of attention. Sometimes I thought Ethan was an idiot, chasing after Clara day after day. She never smiled, never got annoyed. He got no response, no sign of hope. But I was also incredibly jealous of his courage to just go for it. If I were like him, handsome, genuine, from a good family, would Clara have given me a second look? Our classmates loved to ship them, calling them the Ice Queen and the Golden Boy. The brainiac who acted annoyed but secretly let him get away with everything. How could you not ship that? One day in gym class, Ethan was running too fast and took a nasty fall. The water bottle in his arms went flying. Everyone gasped. It looked like it hurt. He was wincing, his face covered in dirt. Clara walked right over to him. It got really quiet. Everyone seemed to be holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen. Her expression didn't change. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a tissue, and knelt down to wipe his face. "Why are you so clumsy?" The scene was kind of beautiful, almost like something out of a teen drama. Hazy, a little raw, and bittersweet. And Ethan, scraped up and bruised, was smiling like a fool. The girls behind me let out a tiny, high-pitched squeal. "Oh my God! She's so into him. I'm dying, this is too good." Clara had a soft spot after all. There's no such thing as a permanent Ice Queen, only a relentless Golden Boy. Ethan worked on Clara for a long time, and with his sheer persistence, he finally melted the heart of the girl who only loved to study. The whole school was talking about it. Back then, I was short, skinny, and weak, a faceless NPC hiding in the background of their romance novel. Their light was probably just too bright. A creature of the shadows like me scurried away, afraid of getting burned, afraid they'd see right through to the shameful, secret crush I kept hidden in my heart. How could I have dared? I wasn't handsome. I had no charm. So I just forced a smile and agreed with everyone around me, my heart not in it. Yeah, they're so sweet together. The only thing I ever dared to do was exchange a few meaningless words with Clara. "Clara, I need to collect the bio homework. Last month, my father was diagnosed with glioblastoma. The prognosis for this disease is terrible. It's highly aggressive, and by the time symptoms appear, it's usually just a few months from diagnosis to the end. Even with systematic treatment, the survival rate is extremely low. The doctor told us to prepare ourselves. It meant he could be gone at any moment. When it rains, it pours. He spent his whole life raising my sister and me on his own, seeing us get married and settled. This was supposed to be his time to relax and enjoy his golden years. But he was taking it surprisingly well. He felt like he'd done everything he needed to in this life, with no lingering regrets. My sister runs her own business and is much busier than I am, so I'm the one who spends most of the time at the hospital with him. My boss was understanding and approved my long-term leave. How's Clara been with work lately? Pretty busy. You two are turning 28 next year. Are you planning on having kids or what? I sat by his bed, peeling an apple. It's common to have kids later these days, I said. I think we're fine where we are right now. My father shot me a cold look. I have no idea what Clara sees in you. I know my own son. When you first brought her home, I thought you just hired someone to fool me. Her family is so well off. How could she possibly be interested in us? My hands slowed. Clara is a wonderful girl. So good I can't find a single fault. You'd be lucky to find someone like her these days. But you don't have any advantages. You're average looking and we're not in the same league. How are you going to keep her? I listened quietly. It was the same old lecture he'd given me hundreds of times. Ultimately, he believed a prize like Clara shouldn't have fallen into my lap. With her family, looks, and talent, she could have anyone. The one person she couldn't possibly love was me. I shouldn't aim so high, I should be more realistic. Growing up, my dad was always especially hard on me. He thought I hadn't inherited any of his decisiveness, just my mother's meek and indecisive nature. I never lived up to his expectations, never earned any of his praise. Until I graduated high school, almost all my clothes were hand-me-downs from my sister. That's why I loved wearing my school uniform. At least at school, it made me look no different from the other boys. He went on for a while, but seeing it was like talking to a brick wall, he gave up. At 7 p.m., my sister finally showed up. She was alone again, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. My dad craned his neck, looking behind her, and my sister finally said, "The kids have their English lesson this afternoon. They didn't have time." Right. School is more important. He said that, but the disappointment on his face was obvious. I went out to get some water, giving the two of them some time alone. The muted group chat had hundreds of new messages. Ethan said he was flying back tomorrow. Everyone chimed in with messages of welcome.
Ölreit, spill.
Who are you most excited to see after all these years? Frank sent a winking emoji. You, of course. My best deskmate in the whole world. I don't think so. Ahem. Can someone please Clara, our star pupil? Stop messing around. She's busy with work. Ooh, listen to the protective husband. Is this what I think it is? Ethan sent a funny gif of a court official bowing and saying, "This servant takes his leave," without giving a clear answer. That just made everyone even more convinced that the two of them were still entangled. None of our classmates knew that Clara and I were married. Maybe because neither of us felt it was necessary. We only did it to appease our parents anyway. We had an agreement. If either of us found true love, we could walk away, no questions asked. My finger hovered over Ethan's profile picture. In the thumbnail, he was a young guy holding a kitten. I was curious, but my thumb slipped. And then, a notification popped up in the chat for everyone to see. Leo just poked Ethan. My mind went blank. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. But you can't unsend a poke. That little notification stood out glaringly among the scattered messages. I was mortified. Hey, who's Leo again? I can't seem to remember him. Was he even in our class? Someone named Kevin noticed me. Dude, are you in the wrong chat? Kevin, are you an idiot? He was our bio class rep. You know, the short kid who always stood at the front of the line? You don't remember? Frank stepped in to smooth things over. Whoa, I just remembered. I had no choice but to reply, sorry, that was an accident. Ethan must have been watching the chat, because as soon as I sent my message, he replied, Leo, long time no see. I remember you used to quietly help me clean up the equipment room after class. I was really grateful for that. Ethan just poked Leo. Leo was so quiet in high school, always so reserved. Every time he came to collect homework, he'd speak in this tiny voice. Haha. Frank, you can't talk. Weren't you always sitting in the front row? Kevin sent a nose-picking emoji. Frank immediately replied with a punching one. The two of them were just as loud and obnoxious as they were in high school. Ethan wrote, Leo, are you coming to the reunion? And just like that, I was thrown into the spotlight. Everyone started chiming in, urging me to go. If I have time, I guess I'll go. You have to come. It's been forever. The chat shifted back to planning the reunion details. Clara still hadn't shown up. I sat on the bench outside the hospital room for a while longer before deciding it was time to go back in. As I reached the door, I heard my sister's voice through the crack. Dad, work has been crazy lately, so I might not be able to come by as often. Once things calm down, I'll bring Jake, Lily, and Chloe to see you. You just focus on your work. Leo's here. I'll hire a nurse for you so Leo can get a break. He's got stuff at the university too. Why waste the money? Nurses are so expensive these days. Your business is just starting to take off, and with 2 kids in school, you need every penny. You just focus on your family. Don't worry about Leo. He's got a cushy job. He's not tired like you are. Dad, I told you not to say things like that. What if Leo hears you? Okay, I won't. He chuckled, then looked at my sister, Jessica, with a sigh. My daughter is so amazing. Dad is so proud watching you build a family and a career. I stood there quietly, my hand on the doorknob, and finally let it fall. A few days later, I came home to the smell of food cooking. My father-in-law was in the kitchen wearing a cartoon apron. He did a little slide step to the door. Surprise. He threw his arms open and, before I could even take my shoes off, pulled me into a tight hug. My cheeks were squished out of shape. Dad, I mumbled, what are you doing here? I missed you guys. He pulled me inside. Go wash your hands. I made your favorites, pepper steak, spicy beef, garlic chicken wings. By the time I sat down at the table, he had brought out a huge, steaming bowl of pork rib and yam soup. Come on, let's eat. We won't wait for Clara. Whenever Clara's dad cooked, it was always a massive feast. He seemed determined to feed us until we burst. He came from a wealthy family, a doted-on son who'd been born with a silver spoon. He had a bright personality and a youthful spirit. He was the heart of the family. Clara got her mother's intellect and her father's charisma. She was the perfect combination of the two of them. Are you tired? Taking care of a patient is hard work. He ladled a bowl of soup for me. I'm fine, really. I'm not tired. Don't say that. I can see you've lost weight. Your face is getting smaller. How's your father doing? I shook my head. Not well. His memory is getting worse, and his reflexes are slowing down. That disease, it's really complicated. I looked down at my soup, not daring to meet his eyes. Clara's dad is a very perceptive man. He looked at me, and his smile suddenly faded. He got up and moved to sit next to me. What happened here? There was a clear handprint on my right cheek, a testament to how hard the person had hit me. It's nothing. My dad hit me. He's been a little unstable lately. His condition had taken a sharp turn for the worse these past 2 days. The medication wasn't really working anymore. The doctor said he'll start having cognitive issues, along with irritability and anxiety. Can happen at any time. I said it calmly, as if I were talking about something completely normal. Is that serious? Does it hurt? Let me get you some ice for it. I stopped him. It's okay. It'll be better in a day or two. What about your sister? Can't she stay with him for a few days? She's busy with work. My dad doesn't want her to get too tired. I knew, deep down, that even if Jessica stayed there every night, he wouldn't take his anger out on her. Growing up, the feather dusters and clothes hangers were almost always used on me. Only when Jessica stood in front of me would the anger on his face soften. Because Jessica was like him, and I was like my mom. After all this time, I was numb to it. My father-in-law didn't say anything, just quietly squeezed my hand. I shouldn't have said any of that, but when you're cold, you naturally gravitate toward warmth. It's human nature. Couldn't help it. Clara's dad patted my head. It's okay, son. You have Clara and you have me and her mom. We're your family, too. You can't keep things like this bottled up. You have to let yourself cry to be healthy, right? I know. I gave him a weak smile. Thanks, Dad. I just want to spend more time with him. This pain is nothing compared to what he's going through. By the time Clara got home, I was already in my room resting. At the hospital, Jessica had hired a nurse for Dad after all. I finally had a few days to catch my breath. I don't know how long I was asleep, but the bedroom door opened quietly, letting in a sliver of light from outside. I knew it was Clara, but my eyelids were too heavy to open. You're back, I heard her hum in response. Then, a hand gently touched my face. It was cool and soothing. She leaned over me and asked in a low voice, "Does it still hurt?" Yes. I didn't want to lie. It really did hurt. She stayed by my side for a long time, so long that I drifted off again. Why haven't you gone back? I heard myself mumble in a daze. But I never heard Clara's reply. I think I had a dream. In the dream, it was the day we met again. I never expected to run into Clara so many years after graduation. New faculty members not only have to go through orientation but also get up to speed on the university's history, rules, and regulations. I was the one in charge of that. So when I was flipping through the new hire files and saw the name Clara Reed, I froze. I figured it was just someone with the same name. In my mind, Clara would have gone to a bigger city, a better institution. This university wasn't bad, but compared to a superstar like her, it was small potatoes. On her first day, Clara wore a crisp, white button-down shirt. She had shed the awkwardness of youth and become even more elegant and refined. We ran into each other around a corner. I looked up at her as I apologized. In my surprise, the words just tumbled out of my mouth without thinking. "Oh, Clara." My eyes went wide. "It's me, Leo." Looking back, I'm sure Clara had no idea who I was. After all, I've never been someone who stands out. Not particularly handsome or outgoing, just a normal guy who tries hard. After I spoke, she paused for a second, then gave me a polite nod. "Long time no see." My colleagues would gossip about Clara in private. "We've got a real treasure at this school now. Look at her face, her figure. If I weren't married, I'd be all over that." One of them winked at me. "I hear she's single. You two are old classmates. What do you think? Maybe you could see where it goes?" I just smiled and didn't say anything. After I started my career, I began paying more attention to my appearance. I'd wear nice casual clothes and even bought a small, used condo not far from campus. The decor was nothing special, but it was cozy. I became much more outgoing than I used to be, playing badminton or going to the movies on weekends. I had obtained so many of the things I once wanted. So when I saw Clara again, I started to have ideas I shouldn't have. I secretly created coincidences to get closer to her. I helped her get familiar with the campus, organized her files, and quietly told her which department heads were the craziest and which cafeteria stalls had the worst food. We became much friendlier and would occasionally have lunch together. She was as popular as ever. Every one of her classes was packed. Clara is a slow burn. After a while, she started telling me about the students she was mentoring. Sometimes she'd even try to explain some professional concept that went completely over my head. She'd glance at me, see the total confusion on my face, and then she'd give a faint, soft smile and say in a low voice, "Let me tell you a different story." I felt like we were getting closer. Away from the confines of high school, I grew bolder. The stupidest thing I did was run back to the school at 8 o'clock one night. It was pouring rain, but the light in Clara's office was still on. I stood under the awning of the science building with my umbrella, waiting for that light to go out. At 9, Clara came downstairs. I gave her a big grin, my teeth chattering from the cold. "Fancy seeing you here. Working late, too?" She seemed a little surprised. "You're still here this late?" I scratched my nose guiltily. "Had some work to finish up." It was about a 10-minute walk to the parking lot. We huddled together under one umbrella, standing very close. The rain and fog enveloped the city, and the raindrops pounded like my racing heart. She insisted on driving me home. The drive was short. Before I got out of the car, I worked up the courage for the first time to say goodnight to her. Her voice was so gentle it was easy to misinterpret. "Good night. Sweet dreams." After I moved out, my dad started calling me several times a week. It was always about one thing: blind dates. Jessica got married to her long-term boyfriend right after graduation, and in the blink of an eye, she had 2 kids. So my dad's main mission in life became finding me a partner. He was old-fashioned. Love wasn't important. What mattered was finding someone you could build a life with. I told him I'll just get a dog. My dad said, "Get lost." Ever since I reconnected with Clara, I'd been even more resistant to his matchmaking. Finally, he promised me this was the last time. If it worked out, great. If not, he'd leave me alone. But on my way to meet the blind date, I ran into a man walking his dog. The leash snapped, and the little dog shot off like a rocket. The man was frantic, shouting and chasing after it. I dropped my bag and took off running, chasing that little thing for 2 full blocks. By the time I brought the dog back, my hair was a mess, my clothes were soaked, and I looked like a wreck. The man, holding my bag, was moved to tears. He immediately invited me to his house for a rest. I was still out of breath and waved him off. "It's no problem, sir, really. I'm happy to help. But I have to be somewhere, so I can't." When I turned around, Clara was standing right behind me. The dog saw her and started wagging its tail like a helicopter rotor. She tilted her head. "Leo?" Before I could say anything, the man exclaimed, "Oh," and came closer. "Clara, is this your friend?" "Hello there. I'm Clara's father. Mr. Reed. Hello. My name is Leo." My mind went blank with nervousness, and I quickly bowed. "Well, what a coincidence." He explained what had happened, and the whole time, Clara just stared at me. After a moment, she suddenly reached out, as if to brush the wet, sticky strands of hair off my face. I think it was just an unconscious gesture, but it startled me. When I realized what was happening, my face flushed. "I'm sweaty, don't touch me." It was as if she didn't hear me. She asked casually, "What are you doing here?" "I'm meeting a friend. I just happened to run into your dad." "A guy?" I bit my lip, finding it hard to say. "A blind date." Clara froze and said nothing more. Her father, however, was surprised. "Oh dear, that's not good timing. Leo, look at you, you're all sweaty. You'll catch a cold if you go like that. Why don't you text the other person and tell them something came up? You can reschedule for another day." He took my hand. "Our house is very close. Come over, change your clothes, and have dinner with us. How about it?" He didn't seem to be giving me a choice. I looked at Clara, pleading for help. She was walking behind us, holding the dog's leash. She seemed lost in thought, her expression unreadable. "By the way, Leo, can I get your number?" her dad asked. I looked away, my head spinning. "Huh? Oh sure, of course." And just like that, Clara's dad and I became good friends. He seemed intent on setting me up with his daughter, often inviting me over for dinner on the weekends. I was afraid that if it went on for too long, Clara would start to resent it, so I started making excuses to turn him down. The blind date was completely forgotten, until a month later, when a woman cornered me at the school gate. She had perfect makeup and was dressed head to toe in designer brands. She handed me her business card with a smile. "Mr. Davis, hello. My name is Lynn. Your father set us up." Just then, Clara appeared behind me. Her hands rested on my shoulders as she asked, "What's going on?" The woman's smile vanished. She looked from me to Clara and said bluntly, "You have a girlfriend?" Sensing hostility, Clara pulled me closer. "Yes, I do. And you are?" The woman eventually left, muttering under her breath, but Clara's hands never left my shoulders. She led me to her car, helped me buckle my seatbelt, her face very close to mine. She saw my wide-eyed expression and whispered, "You have to commit to the role, right?" My face turned beet red. "Right?" Like a patient on the verge of death, I looked at her with pleading eyes. "Should we get married?" Because of the dream about the past, I slept very deeply. My face didn't seem to hurt as much anymore. The group chat had tentatively scheduled the reunion for Saturday night. I still hadn't decided if I was going to go. One of my dad's old friends visited him at the hospital, bringing fruit baskets and milk. There was too much, so he told me to take some to my father-in-law. Ever since he hit me, he'd become much quieter, maybe out of guilt. He spent most of his time just sitting on the bed, staring into space. The nurse my sister found was excellent, efficient, friendly, and around my dad's age. Every time she saw me, she'd praise me. "Such a good boy. So meticulous. They say a son is a mother's treasure." I would just smile and say nothing. At noon, I took the fruit to my father-in-law's house. My mother-in-law was rarely home during the day. She was the director of a local research institute and was always busy with work. I had assumed a high-level intellectual like her would be hard to get along with. But my worries were completely unfounded. Though she was a woman of few words, she was never lacking in warmth and care. The day we got our marriage license, she privately transferred $15,000 to me, saying it was a gift for her new son-in-law and that I should just take it without feeling burdened. After my dad's diagnosis, they were worried we wouldn't have enough for his treatment and gave me a credit card. I haven't spent a single penny from it. Regardless of whether Clara and I have a future, my life with her family has been happy and warm. My father-in-law was thrilled to see me. "We were just talking about you."
Come in, Leo, come in.
I followed him, asking hesitantly, "Are there guests over today?" Maybe it was a premonition, but my steps slowed, and a sense of unease washed over me. Long time no see, Leo. When I walked into the living room, Clara's long-lost first love was sitting in my favorite spot, smiling warmly at me. The expression on my face froze. There are some people who, the moment they appear, make you feel instinctively inadequate, small. Because he was even more handsome, more brilliant, more captivating than before. Seeing me stunned, he laughed. You don't remember me? It's Ethan. I snapped out of it and forced a smile. Long time no see, Ethan. My father-in-law said. Ethan used to live just downstairs from us. Our families were very close. Plus, he and Clara were in the same class and often walked to school together. He just got back to the States not long ago and made a special trip to see us. He motioned for me to sit. You two chat for a bit. I'll go get some fruit. I felt awkward, my hands and feet turning cold. I avoided Ethan's scrutinizing gaze. But Ethan broke the silence. Leo, your father-in-law tells me you and Clara are married? Congratulations. I've been abroad for so long, and Clara never mentioned she got married. I'll be sure to send you both a wedding gift soon. I shook my head. That's not necessary. He looked at me and chuckled. Leo, you're still so quiet, but you've gotten more handsome. Just then, my father-in-law came back with a plate of sliced oranges. By the way, Ethan, does Clara know you're back? Oh yeah, she knows. I told her I wanted to come visit you and was afraid you might have moved, so I asked for your address. That girl, she didn't tell me. Well, if I told you ahead of time, it wouldn't be a surprise, would it? You rascal. So they'd been in contact this whole time? I didn't know anything. Clara doesn't really tell me about these things. I sat on my favorite couch, listening to my father-in-law and Ethan reminisce about the past. After all, Clara and Ethan had a history that I could never be a part of. He could win her parents' affection so much more easily. I wasn't irreplaceable. Even though Clara and I were husband and wife, our connection was nothing compared to theirs. The realization was a crushing blow. Is this the end for us? I zoned out slightly. I wanted to run. After what felt like an eternity, I finally mustered the courage to interrupt their trip down memory lane. I said apologetically, Mr. Reed, I have to get going. Ethan, I'll see you around. He gave me a small smile. Okay, take care on your way out. My father-in-law walked me to the door. I was planning on cooking a big meal for you guys. Leo, is something urgent going on with your dad? There's nothing, Mr. Reed. You guys go ahead and eat. I'm sure I looked awful right then. So when the door opened and Clara appeared, it felt like my heart had plummeted to the floor all over again. She didn't know I was bringing fruit over today. It was obvious who she was here to see. My eyes burned, and I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I rushed past her. I'm going back to the hospital. Clara grabbed my arm. I'll drive you. No need. I tried to push her hand away, but she wouldn't budge. She seemed to sense my distress and, for once, held on tight. Leo. I took a deep breath, my voice thick and noticeably colder. Let go. It was probably the first time I had ever spoken to her in that tone. She froze. I seized the opportunity to pull my wrist free. I used a little too much force and stumbled backward a few steps, feeling utterly pathetic. I can get there myself. I admit I was spiraling. The little demon named insecurity, long buried in my past, had come roaring back to life. It made me lose my cool, lose myself. It laid bare all my lifelong flaws right in front of Clara. And it ripped my carefully constructed facade to shreds. See? I'm not as nice as you thought. I turned and walked away without looking back. That afternoon, at the hospital, I got a call from Ethan. Maybe I had already anticipated he would ask to meet, so I felt nothing. Leo? It's Ethan. Can we meet this afternoon? He sounded like he was in a good mood. Sure. Around 4 o'clock, I let the nurse know and went to meet Ethan. First, we just talked about old school stories. Then suddenly, Ethan changed the subject. So, how did you and Clara end up together? His face wore a flawless smile, his demeanor perfect. But I felt a chill run down my spine. We work at the same place. Well, that's quite a coincidence. So, does this mean your dream came true? My breath hitched, and I snapped my head up to look at him. He rested his chin on one hand and continued casually. I don't know if you remember Kevin? One time during cleaning duty, he happened to find a diary that fell out of your desk. He passed it around the class. We had no idea someone so timid could have such a rich inner life. That's when I found out you had a crush on Clara. A little out of your league, don't you think? I suddenly heard a sharp ringing deep inside my head. I told Clara about it later. I said, hey, that quiet bio rep has a thing for you. Guess what she said? He stared at me, as if to capture my every reaction. She said, what does that have to do with me? Thump, thump, thump. So after I got with her, I was worried you'd be upset. Luckily, you were a nice guy and still helped me clean up after gym class every time. I looked down, silent, my nails digging deep into my palms. You mean, she knew I liked her the whole time? Of course. We all knew. He said it cruelly. You were the only one who didn't, Leo. But it's fine. A lot of guys liked her. You were just one of them. He was forcibly dragging all the secret shame of my teenage years into the harsh light for everyone to mock and ridicule. My boyish crush, which I thought I had hidden so well, had become gossip, belittled and insulted. A wave of intense nausea washed over me. Oh right. It seems Clara doesn't want anyone to know about your relationship. Don't worry. I'll keep my mouth shut at the reunion. He finally dropped the smile, his tone turning cold. Leo, I'm a straightforward person, so don't take this the wrong way. But I believe everyone has the right to pursue happiness. To selfishly keep someone by your side is a truly despicable act. He tapped his fingers on the table. Clara has a hard time saying no to friends, so I hope you won't turn the kindness she's shown you into a cage to trap her. Ethan was still handsome, so handsome it made me sick with envy. But after all these years, he had become arrogant, cruel. He had become the person I had once imagined myself to be. Ethan, even though Clara and I didn't get married for love, I was the one who asked, and she was the one who accepted. If she feels like I'm forcing her to stay, then let her tell me herself. Let her ask me to let her go. I would gladly accept, walk away without a second thought, and never look back. I stood up and said coldly, if that's not the case, then please don't stand there on your high horse, acting like some third party, judging and questioning me. My heart was cold. My head was throbbing, but I had never felt so clear. The gentle piano music of the coffee shop floated through the air, making the tension between us feel incredibly out of place. Ethan, I'm glad you're back in the country, and I wish you all the best in the future. But let's not meet alone again. I got up and left without seeing his final expression. On the bus ride, I glanced at my texts. The group chat was still buzzing with speculation about Clara and Ethan. Did you guys know? Last September, Clara went to Berlin and had dinner with Ethan. Whoa, for real. He told me himself. I almost died. Are you saying they've been in touch all these years? More than that. I bet they secretly got married already. Damn, she must be so in love. Clara and I got married last July. In September, she flew to Germany for an academic conference and came back 2 weeks later. I had no idea she went to see Ethan. I stared blankly out the window. The city was a blur of people and traffic. I didn't know where to go. When you're panicking, you start to shake. The cold seeped from head to toe, deep into my bones, freezing me to the core. I got off the bus halfway, bought a hot milk tea, and sat on a park bench. I never cried much as a kid. Even when my dad broke a stick on me, I'd just bite my lip and take it. It was always my sister who would cry, clinging to his leg and begging him to stop. He hated my mom so much, so he didn't love me much either. But even so, he had single-handedly held our broken, impoverished family together. He had once been the tree that sheltered me from the storm. I want him to be happy in his final years, to stop being so tough, so worried. But it feels like he's about to leave me, too. I must have looked really down, because a little kid nearby asked me what was wrong. I swirled my milk tea. It's too bitter. How can milk tea be bitter? Because I'm bitter inside, little one. She pursed her lips, hesitated for a moment, then suddenly pulled a piece of candy from her pocket and placed it in my palm. This is really sweet. Mommy doesn't let me have too many. It's for you. Thank you, but the adult world is a bitter place. Then I don't want to grow up. Oh man, am I crushing this kid's spirit? Can't be a downer around children. I tried to comfort her. You'll be fine. Why? Because you're pretty and kind. She tilted her head, confused. But you're handsome and kind too. Why are you still sad? She looked at me in the light, her eyes clear and free of any pretense. Kids don't lie, right? Can I ask you a question? She put her hands on her hips, full of confidence. Ask away. I know lots of things. What if you have something you really, really like? And one day you finally get it, but you find that you're not that happy. In fact, it makes you sad, disappointed, and confused. What would you do? She thought about it for a second and then said decisively, I throw it away. I don't want it anymore. I gave her a thumbs up. Wise choice. Maybe it was because I'd vented, or maybe it was the bright sunlight in the distance. I hadn't felt this clear-headed in a long time. Then I don't want it anymore, I whispered. Let everything go back to the way it was. Only then will I stop feeling so insecure and anxious. Only then can I be myself again. I decided to move back to my little condo for a while. It felt like there weren't many traces of me in Clara's house. I stood in the doorway and looked around. I had bought a few plants to liven up the cold space. Unfortunately, neither Clara nor I were very good at taking care of them. We could only watch as the green plants went from vibrant to withered, and finally, dead. I crouched on the floor, staring at their corpses, feeling like a terrible person. At the time, Clara had said, the ecosystem here isn't right for it. I sighed. I guess you can't force some things. I packed up a few small personal items and some clothes for the season, trying to make my departure seem less abrupt. Back in my long-neglected condo, I gave the place a thorough cleaning. By the time I was more or less done, it was past 8 p.m. I was dozing off on the couch when I realized my phone had been vibrating for who knows how long. It was Clara. Hello. Are you at the hospital? She was silent for a few seconds. Leo, where are you? I closed my eyes and gave in. At my condo. I'm coming to get you. But I think I need to be alone for a while. My answer seemed to throw her off. For how long? I don't know. Then what should I do when I want to see you? I leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling, feeling a sense of relaxation I hadn't felt in a long time. Are you going to the reunion? She didn't seem to understand the sudden change of topic, but answered patiently, No. I thought you didn't know about it. Frank contacted me. I took a deep breath. Clara, maybe we should end this. What do you mean? I scratched my nose. She was really going to make me spell it out. I mean, a divorce. Marriage and divorce. Are they just casual things for you to bring up whenever you feel like it? Her voice grew colder, sending a shiver down my spine. I couldn't imagine her being angry. Then again, Clara was like a difficult book. I had flipped through her pages 1,000 times but only understood the surface. For instance, when she was struggling with something, her brow would furrow, her lips would press into a thin line, and she'd sit there for an hour without moving, determined to wrestle with a difficult passage until she understood it. There was a time when my favorite thing to do was just quietly watch her. But she's a person who values her personal space, so I've always felt like an intruder, buzzing around her with my one-sided affection. Of course not. Every word I've ever said to you has been serious. The line went quiet. I just feel like we don't kiss, we don't hug, we don't sleep together. We're just doing this for our parents. When the time comes, we should go our separate ways, right? I let out a small laugh. I'm actually curious. Why did you agree to my ridiculous proposal in the first place? Back then, she hadn't even hesitated for long before saying, Okay, are you going to tell me it's because you liked me a little? Please, we barely spoke a few words in high school. Do you just say yes to everyone who likes you? Leo. Was it because I looked so pathetic that you felt sorry for me? Leo. She was genuinely angry now. Stop it. You need to calm down. We can't have a rational conversation right now. Believe it or not, I'm perfectly calm. I'm on my way over now. Did you know for a while that Ethan was coming back? She paused, then said, Yes. When you went to Berlin, were you there to see him? She went silent, which felt like a confirmation. Have you ever thought about getting back together with him? I wanted to ask, but I realized there was no point. Well then, I wish you two the best. Hope you can rekindle things and live happily ever after. First, I just wanted Clara by my side. Then I wanted Clara to love me. But that turned into an insurmountable mountain, leaving me exhausted. Just as I said that, my phone conveniently died. The world went quiet again. The black screen reflected my tired face. I lay down on the couch, feeling drained, with no desire to find a charger. That night, I went back to the hospital. My dad was already asleep. I sat on the bench outside his door, staring into the dark until morning. Did you and Clara have a fight? She came to the hospital looking for you yesterday. It's normal for couples to fight. Your sister and her husband fight all the time, and they have 2 kids, don't they? His eyesight had deteriorated badly. He stared into space as he talked, his face expressionless. I had no desire to argue with him. He no longer had the power to control my life anyway. He had brief moments of clarity each day. The rest of the time, he was delirious, muttering for my sister to drink less. Too bad my sister couldn't hear him. After talking for a bit, my dad fell asleep again. The toll of the disease and the side effects of the treatment were causing his body to rapidly decline. His neurological functions were collapsing. If there's a heaven, I hope he gets there soon to find peace, rather than being tortured like this. A few days later, I found some time to go to Clara's place. I left a signed divorce agreement and a bank card on the table. The money in the account was everything her parents had given me. I hadn't touched a cent. I sat in a chair for a while. I felt lost. In over a year, it felt like I hadn't made a single happy memory here. When Clara was home, she spent most of her time in her study. We had our own spaces and never interfered with each other. Sometimes, on a whim, I'd bake something for her, hoping to see a special expression on her face. It didn't have to be more than what she showed Ethan. Just a little would have been enough. But she would just glance at it and say, "You don't have to make these for me. I don't really like sweets." At 1 a.m, I sat on the floor of my room in the faint moonlight and ate every last bite. Everything I owned fit perfectly into one suitcase. I placed the house key next to the divorce papers. She would see it right away. The door closed slowly. We were over. The reunion is tomorrow. Frank was wailing in the group chat that Clara had turned down his invitation, saying she was too busy with work. That's the most in-character thing ever. Classic Clara. My truth or dare plan for them is ruined. It's okay, we can still play. Even though I can't ship them in person, I'm just glad to know they're on good terms. What do you mean by that? Give us the inside scoop. What's up? What's up? Did you guys see Ethan's social media post a few days ago? The one with the table full of food and the heart hands? Bingo! I heard Clara's dad made it for him. I mean, what kind of ex-couple is still that close with the in-laws? You think they're just one step away from making it official? All right, everyone, get your wallets ready for a wedding next year. This trip wasn't for nothing. It seems my marriage to Clara is still a well-kept secret. She could probably get remarried and no one would even notice. My old desk mate, Ben, suddenly messaged me. "Leo, are you going to the reunion? Want to go together?" He sent a nervous-looking emoji. We were best friends back in school, but we lost touch after graduation. I thought about it and replied, "Sure, let's go together." On Saturday, I gave the nurse a heads up, met up with Ben, and we took a cab to the hotel. The venue was nicely decorated, with a photo backdrop and balloons. It looked like a big deal. The guest of honor was, of course, Ethan. He was wearing a casual beige suit, his hair perfectly styled. He had an air of effortless class. From the moment he walked in, he was surrounded by people, like a prince holding court. Ben and I found an inconspicuous spot to sit and wait for the dinner to start. But at its core, a class reunion is just a place for people to show off their success or try to rekindle old flames. The conversation revolved around the same few popular people. Those of us with less presence couldn't even get a word in. Not even half an hour into the dinner, Frank brought up Clara. It's a shame our class genius couldn't make it. If she were here, this would probably turn into a wedding reception, right? Everyone started hooting and hollering, their eyes darting toward Ethan. Ethan just smiled calmly, unperturbed. His gaze swept over me for a second, and then he suddenly said, "Leo, I'd like to raise a toast to you." He stood up gracefully. "I hope we can always be good friends." He downed his glass and waited for my response. Maybe people were finally noticing me, because I could feel more and more curious glances. I didn't say anything, just drank a full glass of liquor with him. Kevin, who was always a jerk, was a little drunk and spoke without thinking. "I remember Leo used to have a crush on Clara, right? Back in sophomore year, I was cleaning and saw your diary. You're a pretty good writer, man. You described her like she was a goddess." "Ha ha ha. Dude, that's so messed up. Why were you reading his diary?" Another guy scolded him, but he had a smirk on his face. Maybe I drank the liquor too fast, because a fire started in my chest, making me feel sick. Ben touched my hand and whispered, "You okay, man?" I shook my head.
I'm fine.
Ethan raised his glass again for another toast. "It's really great to see everyone. I hope we can do this again when everyone can make it." After a few more rounds, people started breaking off into smaller groups to catch up. I hadn't had a drink in a long time, and my face and body felt hot. Suddenly, someone clapped me on the shoulder. It was Kevin. He waited for Ben to go to the restroom, then slid into the seat next to me with his drink. "Leo, what do you do now? Still in the city?" He sat sideways, one arm draped over the back of my chair. He reeked of alcohol. When he saw Ben coming back, he waved him away impatiently. "We were desk mates for a month once, remember? How could I forget?" He was always the last one to turn in his bio homework, getting me yelled at by the teacher for being too slow and irresponsible. So eventually, I stopped waiting for him. When I came back from the teacher's office, all the books on my desk had been pushed onto the floor. They were covered in footprints. Kevin glared at me. "You did that on purpose, didn't you, Leo?" Later, I privately told our homeroom teacher about it, and he moved my seat. I gave him a cold look. "I remember. You were mad I handed in the homework before you could finish copying it, and you threw a fit. Hey, we were all young and stupid back then, right? My bad. I was such an asshole." Kevin licked his lips. "You know, you're way more handsome than you used to be. You look good." My hand was on my glass, and I was about to throw its contents in his face to snap him out of it. Then I heard him yell, "Ow, shit." It was so loud that almost everyone looked over. I turned around and saw Clara standing behind me. She had twisted the arm he'd draped over my chair into an unnatural angle, making him yelp in pain. "Who the hell?" Clara shoved him away, her eyes dark. "I'm his wife." The entire room went silent. I was instantly sober. Kevin rubbed his wrist, looking Clara up and down. His face changed. You're not Clara Reed, are you?" Clara acted as if she hadn't heard him. She reached out and touched my cheek. "Why are you drinking? You know you can't hold your liquor. What are you doing here?" "I came to take you home." I looked up at her, and maybe it was the alcohol, but she seemed like a stranger. Frank ran over to play peacemaker. "Oh, Clara, since you're here, why don't you sit down and have something to eat?" "No, thank you. I'm just here to pick up my husband." "You and Leo, are you married?" Clara didn't confirm or deny it. Frank took a deep breath, looking at me in disbelief. Clara helped me up, put my coat on, and zipped it up. From the moment she arrived, she hadn't looked at Ethan once. All her attention was on me. An awkward silence fell over the room. I said in a voice only Clara could hear, "Right now let's go home first." She took my hand and started leading me out. "Clara, you're doing this on purpose, aren't you?" Ethan's voice came from behind us. "Do you think making Leo pretend to be your husband is going to get back at me?" He sounded unusually emotional, his voice cracking. "I know you've been upset ever since I broke up with you, but you don't have to drag Leo into this. He's innocent." He cleverly shifted the focus back to himself, making it seem like my marriage to Clara was just a ploy to get revenge on him for their breakup. It was a classic trope. 10 out of 9 getting back together stories have a plot like this. Right now, I felt like the disposable side character, the obstacle thrown between the main couple just to create drama. But Clara didn't stop walking. Her face was calm as she just squeezed my hand tighter. "Leo and I will make sure to invite you all to our wedding reception sometime soon." Sitting in her car, I rubbed my temples. She reached out and touched my forehead. Feeling sick? I can go get you something for the hangover. No, I'll be fine after I sleep it off. Clara still hadn't said a word about the divorce papers. I didn't know if she hadn't seen them or was just ignoring them. I wanted to use this opportunity to talk about it, but my head was killing me. Why did you come today? Because I wanted to see you. She answered without hesitation, her profile cool in the shifting light. You weren't answering your phone, so I had to come find you myself. I didn't say anything, just leaned my head against the headrest, not in the mood to talk. Did my behavior today upset you? I just thought it was necessary for everyone to know you're my husband. I was the one who was drinking, but it seemed like Clara was the one who was drunk. I took a deep breath. Clara, I think I'm going to be sick. I'm sorry. I'm not very good at saying these things. Was that too cheesy? No, I said, covering my mouth. I just drank too much. When we got home, I spent a long time throwing up over the toilet. She came in and gently rubbed my back. You know you're a lightweight, but you still drink this much, especially when I'm not around. I leaned against her chest, weakly retorting, haven't you ever heard of drowning your sorrows? A moment later, I felt myself being lifted. The next time I was conscious, she was wiping my face with a warm towel. You're awake? Here, drink some water. She helped me sit up, supporting my back and holding a glass of warm water to my lips. The only light in the room was a small, dim lamp, creating a deceptive illusion of peace and quiet. You don't want to divorce me, do you? Her breath caught. No, she said. Why? I'm not as handsome as Ethan, I'm not as driven, and I'm not very likable. What's your reason for keeping me around? She put down the glass and sat in front of me. Leo, some love doesn't need a reason. How is that possible? Even my own father can't love me. How could you? I've liked you since high school. My entire diary was filled with you. So when I saw you again, I got selfish. Marrying you was like a dream, but I wasn't happy. Then I figured out why. I got greedy. The alcohol had short-circuited my brain, and the words just poured out. Liking someone is subjective. I don't blame you. We're just not a good fit. This marriage was a mistake from the beginning. She squeezed my hand tightly. Leo, it's my fault. I was too arrogant. I thought love didn't need to be spoken, that if enough time passed, you would just accept our marriage as fact. I waited until we were falling apart to try and fix things. I like you, love you, more than you can imagine. She must have rehearsed that speech for a long time, because she said it all in one breath, waiting nervously for my reaction. I found it funny. I blinked my tired eyes and looked away. I don't believe you.
I'm tired.
Just let me go. I'll apologize to your dad. I pulled my hand away and lay back down. Exhausted, I fell asleep quickly. The next day, the usually boisterous group chat was dead silent. Only Ben messaged me to ask how I was feeling, saying I looked pale yesterday and he was worried. A little later, he asked cautiously, Are you and Clara really married? You left early yesterday, so you didn't see it. Ethan was ranting for a while. A lot of people were comforting him. Some were even saying you were the other man, but I know you're not like that. Besides, they broke up ages ago. Who's the homewrecker here is anyone's guess. You should invite me over sometime. I'm really curious about your love story. I thought for a long time about how to reply. In the end, I just said, let them think what they want. I'm fine now. Thanks, Ben. Since I had moved all my luggage back to my condo, I had to borrow some of Clara's clothes. When I went out to the living room, the divorce papers, key, and credit card were still sitting where I'd left them. Clara hadn't gone to work. She was busy in the kitchen, surrounded by clouds of steam. I only remembered about a third of my drunken rambling from last night, so seeing her this morning felt awkward. She heard me and turned around. Her glasses were fogged up, which was kind of funny. Come sit down. I made porridge. She ladled a bowl and brought it over. It's my dad's recipe. It might not be as perfect as his. I took a sip. It was sweet and fragrant, with goji berries, red beans, and dates. It's delicious. Good. She seemed to let out a breath of relief. Such a scholar, precise, with no room for error. We had always been more like roommates. But today, the atmosphere was different. charged with an undercurrent of tension. Leo, there are a few things I want to clear up. She sat up straight, her expression serious. She even had a small stack of papers next to her, as if she were about to give an important speech. I put down my spoon and sat up straighter, feeling a little uncomfortable. Ethan and I were in a normal relationship when we were young. We had a normal breakup. To be honest, he had a big impact on me, and it made me question if I still had feelings for him. But then you came into my life, and I felt fulfilled and happy. The funny thing is, I didn't think of it as love. It was more like having a good friend, a confidant. I gradually got used to you being around. One day, I saw you squatting next to the plants, mumbling some silly spell, and I thought it was adorable. I started watching you without realizing it, captivated by all your little quirks. You have such a passion for life. Compared to you, I'm full of flaws. I thought love meant giving you space and respect, but love is actually simple. It's about being responsive, about following through. Unfortunately, I learned that too late. She gave a bitter smile and continued, when I went to Berlin, it really was for an academic conference. The professor who went with me can vouch for that. She pulled out a piece of paper. It was a printout of a group chat with her mentors, clearly stating the time, place, and schedule of the conference. Clara had replied, "Got it." Secondly, my meeting with Ethan in Berlin was completely coincidental. He was one of the event organizers. We just attended a dinner with a lot of other people. We chatted a bit because we were old classmates. Everyone there can attest that there was nothing going on between us. The next page was her chat history with Ethan. There were only a few messages, and Clara's tone was always professional. Just before Ethan was about to return, he messaged her, "Clara, I'm coming back to the States. I'd like to visit your parents. Would that be okay?" Clara's reply was brief. She sent her parents' address, followed by 2 words, "That's fine." The last page. It was a full page of self-criticism and reflection. Arrogance. The most important thing in a marriage is complete honesty. My arrogance led to many unnecessary misunderstandings. It was very immature, boring. As your wife, I treated expressing my love as unimportant and forced you to guess what I was thinking. That was very selfish, dishonest. My love should have been unconditional. I should have told my husband every day what a special person he is, deserving of all the unprompted love in the world. Clara read each point out loud. I sat there, stunned, my fingers trembling. I was both bewildered and terrified by everything she was saying. She touched the back of my hand, gently comforting me. Then she got up and brought the divorce agreement over to us, and signed her name. "I love you, but you are free. You can say when we start and when we stop. I'm completely in your hands." My upbringing turned me into someone with low self-esteem, afraid to face my own feelings, constantly putting myself down. In dissecting herself, Clara had dissected me, too. We were both responsible for this failed marriage, I thought. I looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "You're the one who fixed the drawer, weren't you?" "Yes." "And that time you put cold compresses on my face all night? I don't think you're so smart anymore. You're actually kind of dumb." She looked down and smiled softly. "Very dumb." And just like that, we got divorced. We went to her parents together and explained everything. Her father cried, holding my hand and refusing to let go. Luckily, they didn't blame me. Before I left, they told me to come over for dinner often. Clara drove me to the hospital entrance. Before I got out, she asked, "Will you get annoyed if I call you often?" I thought about it. No. I had one foot out the door, then I sat back down. "And if I kiss you, will you be disgusted?" At that, she raised an eyebrow. "Are you rewarding me?" I shrugged. "That time I offered you a good morning kiss, you seemed to hate the idea." She scratched her nose awkwardly. "I was really nervous then, just tense. Oh, one more thing. On the 3rd shelf of your bookcase, there's a copy of Sapiens. The photo of you and Ethan is still inside. Anyway, I'm going now." I gave her a wave. "Drive safe." Clara used to be an obsession, a distant star. But now I see she's just an ordinary person. There are no gods. When I saw myself as inferior, everyone else became a god. Ah, how ridiculous. A month later, my dad passed away. He left suddenly, as if from a very long dream. I was hit with a wave of immense grief and emptiness. In that instant, I realized I didn't have a father anymore. When I came to, Clara was holding my hand, walking with me. My eyes were vacant. In the distance, I saw my sister kneeling on the floor, bowing her head several times toward his hospital bed. After that, I got very sick. I had a high fever that wouldn't break, and Clara stayed by my side the whole time. When I was asleep, she would work in the next room. The whole ordeal left her looking much thinner. It was strange. We were no longer married, but we were closer than ever. Her dad came to visit a few times. I heard him tell her, "I'll take care of Leo. You go get some rest." But she refused. I don't want to leave his side. This isn't a dream, I thought hazily. The next time I was fully conscious, it was dark. The bank card my sister had given me was still on the nightstand. She had said, "This is from Dad. He gave it to me secretly. I don't want a penny of it. It's all yours." She had hesitated, then added, "Leo, don't hate him." I got out of bed. Clara had fallen asleep on the living room couch, surrounded by papers and books. Her laptop was still on. I walked over to her and rested my head on her lap, just looking at her. There were dark circles under her eyes, a testament to her exhaustion. After a while, she woke up. When she saw me, she reached out and pulled me into her arms. We held each other tightly. "Why didn't you sleep in the bed?" "I was afraid you'd call for me and I wouldn't hear." I wrapped my arms tighter around her neck. "Then you should have just slept next to me. You haven't exactly given me a title. Two single people, it's not proper." I laughed, my eyes welling up. "Leo, I like you more than you can imagine, but I'm so bad at expressing it. I was wrong. Can you forgive my ignorance and my rigidness?" I sat up, patted her on the shoulder, and said comfortingly, "It was the first time for both of us. It's normal that we didn't know how to be married." She squinted at me. "Who else are you planning on marrying?" I quickly covered my mouth. Slip of the tongue, Let me rephrase. That was the first chapter of our lives. If we messed it up, we just start over. It's not a big deal. Okay, should we get some more plants? Whatever you want. So, Clara, when do we start over? She kissed my forehead. "When you love yourself more."